Today I want to talk about autoencoders. So the goal is to introduce a common and useful neural architecture. So what is an autoencoder? An autoencoder is a neural network that learns to encode and potentially decode a set of inputs. It's called an autoencoder because it learns the encoding automatically. So the way these work, here's a picture of an autoencoder. The way these work is the input and the output are the same thing. You have the input over here, and the output, you want to be a reconstructed copy of the input. But in the process of going through the network, it goes through this bottleneck, this sort of compression phase, what's called the encoding. So we have the encoder over here, basically takes the input and goes through however many layers you want into the sort of bottleneck encoding layer. This is often, we call it, this is called the code here, but it's often called the latent representation. Latent because latent means kind of, well, you can look it up in the dictionary, but in this context, it basically means it's alluding to information that's in the data set, but isn't necessarily made explicit. So latent representation, it's also often called the embedding space. I'll call it that as well. So the embedding space is referring to the, I guess, the vector space of representations that this hidden middle layer can take on. So notice that this input and the output are basically the same size, right? So in this neural network, when we're training it, we've got the encoder and then the decoder. And when we train it, we compare the output of the decoder to the input of the encoder. And so our loss will be between x primed, the output, and x. So x primed is over here, and x is way over here on the input. So we're trying to reconstruct the input as the output. Now notice that the code layer is smaller than the input/output layers. So there's a reason for that. The input and output are basically high-dimensional spaces. There's a lot of information in there, but presumably a lot of the data is kind of redundant. And the actual information contained in the data set is actually lower dimensional. And so the objective of an autoencoder is to squeeze that input through this latent representation, through this kind of compression zone, this bottleneck, and force the neural network to try to come up with a more efficient way of representing your input data, because it's got less bits, fewer nodes to encode the information. So you're basically forcing it to come up with a more efficient encoding. That's why we say they can be used to find efficient codes for high-dimensional data. So let me give you an example. Suppose I have the following data set. Here's a whole bunch of binary strings. Maybe that's just for whatever reason I want to be able to encode those different strings more efficiently. So notice that even though they're 8-dimensional strings, you could think of them as 8-dimensional binary vectors. So in general, you would need 8 bits to encode an 8 binary vector or an 8 binary string. Because there are a total of 256 different states that these strings can take on. But the actual data set that I have only contains 5 of those. And I just constructed this by kind of randomly choosing a bunch of bits to be on and off. There are only 5 different patterns. So I could, in theory, represent these 5 different patterns with 3 binary bits. Because 3 binary bits, of course, can encode a total of 8 different patterns. Okay, so the input can be 8-dimensional, but that latent space, the encoding layer, can have 3 nodes instead. And then we decode from that back out to the output, which is again 8. Quick joke. It's times like these that I'm reminded of my uncle's last words. A truck! Okay, so how do we encode, or how do we create these neural networks? You can think of it as just having 2 layers, basically, or I guess one side, an encoding side, where we have over here, whoops, I've got this input here, and then I go through some, I'm showing one layer here, but it could be any number of layers until we get to the code layer, or the latent space, or the representational space, embedding space, lots of different names for this. And then that's the encoding phase. Oops, that's an erase. My likes to do that. Encode, and then the decode over here. And I could have a completely separate network to decode my embedding, or my latent representation. Or if we wanted to, we could have the encoding and the decoding actually be using the same sets of weights. So I could have my encoding here using W, and then my decoding using W transpose. It has to be the transpose, right? Because instead of going from 8 to 3D, which would be an 8 by 3 matrix, it's got to go from 3D to 8D, which would be the transpose of that matrix, a 3 by 8 matrix. So in this case, we call these tied weights. So in general, they can be separate weights, like M and W and M, or we can have tied weights. So that's what I'm saying down here. If we allow W and M to be different, then it's just a 3-layer network, 3 or more layer network. But if we enforce that M equals W transpose, then we say the weights are tied. Okay, so when we have tied weights, we can actually represent our network in a slightly different, or we can think of it in a different way. We can think of W as going in this direction and W transpose as going in this direction. And it's really just running the encoder. Well, the decoder is just running the encoder backwards, basically. So it's just different ways of thinking about autoencoders. This particular representation here at the end comes up a lot in the, we're not going to talk about it, but restricted Boltzmann machines of Jeff Hinton and his team. Okay, so these are different ways to think about autoencoders. Now, after training, the idea is that we get each different, if I think of my latent space as having 3 nodes, then what I want is each of my different inputs to give me a different latent representation. So here's an example. Let's say train this network, and each of these different 8-bit inputs maps to a different latent representation. I'm showing them as binary 3 vectors here. They don't necessarily have to be binary. Kind of depends on how you design your encoder and therefore your decoder. In this case, I believe I'm using logistic activation functions. So things have to be between 0 and 1. They tend to sort of gravitate towards 0 and 1. So I'll show you an example in a minute. So suppose you, once we have this network, this autoencoder that goes through this latent representation that looks like this, one of the nice things about an autoencoder is suppose you encounter an input that looks like this. Okay, so this isn't in the input or the training data set. It's not one of those patterns, but it is close to one of them. Looks like it's the same as the first one, except this bit here has an error. It's been switched to a 1 instead of a 0. I think that's the closest one. Yeah. So if we were to put that through our neural network, you could ask the question, what latent representation does it map to? And what output will the autoencoder give? Will it kind of reconstruct the fixed bit string, or will it be something different? So that's an experiment you can try. Let me switch now to showing you a demonstration in Python. So I'll make this notebook available to you. It just demonstrates some of the basic autoencoder functionality. So we're going to use PyTorch as usual. And I've got this data set. So these are just the bit strings that you saw in the notes. And I create this binary world data set, and I create the class, and I create a data set from it, and here you can see the inputs. And for that matter, the targets are the same. Okay, so let's create a neural network model. Here's my autoencoder. Now I'm creating a class. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want to create an encoder and then a decoder. And when I run forward, I run the encoder first on the input, and then I run the decoder on the intermediate thing. But the reason I do it this way is because I can store the latent representation after running the encoder, and then I can push that latent representation through my decoder. So I've separated out the encoder and decoder so that I can store my latent representation. Okay, so I'm going to just use the standard learning functionality that we've been using all along. I don't think I defined what the optimization thing is yet. We'll see if that works. I've got optim here, but I haven't defined it yet, but maybe this will work. Okay, so I create one with 8 inputs, and my latent dimension is 3D. These are my inputs up here, and you can see I've got a linear layer that goes from the input dimension to the latent dimension, and then the decoder goes from latent dimension to back to reconstruct the input again. Okay, I'm using binary cross entropy loss, and I'm going to use stochastic gradient descent with momentum equals 0.9, and then train it for 5,000 epochs, and you can see it learns and the error goes way down close to 0. So let's see how well it worked. So this is running the inputs through my data set and getting my outputs. You can see that I get a bunch of things that look like zeros and ones. I've rounded it to 2 decimal places here. Maybe a bit easier to look at instead, kind of a binary picture. So this is, each row represents the one of the inputs, the binary string, and here I'm showing my reconstructed versions of it. So these pictures look pretty similar. So it's basic. The autoencoder works. It knows how to take the input, push it through this lower dimensional latent space, and then reconstruct on the other side. And let's look at what the latent representation is. Here I'm just getting my net.h. Remember that when I ran forward, I stored h as the latent representation. And you can see each row, again, is a binary 3 vector. And I think you can see that each row corresponds to one of the different inputs, and they're all different binary numbers or different latent representations. So here we have like basically 1, 1, 0, 0-ish, 0, 1, 0, 1, 1, 0. This is kind of like a 0, 0, 0, and this is kind of like a 1, 0, 0. So each of the different 3 vectors is different. So at each input you feed into it gets mapped to a different latent representation, and from that latent representation, as I've shown you, we can reconstruct the output or approximation of the output. Now, just to show you that this is, didn't mean to do that. To show you that this is, move things up a bit here. Show you that the weights are not tied in this case. So net is my network, but it has different pieces. It has an encoder. Now my encoder has different pieces as well. It's got two different layers, if you like, a pipeline of two different layers. So encoder 0 is the linear layer, and I can ask for the weights of that layer. Let me do the same for the decoder. Decoder happens to be the first layer again. So this is a 3 by, the encoder is a 3 by 8 matrix, and the decoder has an 8 by 3 matrix. And you can see that they're not transposes of each other. I didn't ask them to be. So now let's try it with tied weights. So here I'm going to create an autoencoder again. Now, this time I'm going to set my encoder weights to be equal to the transpose of my decoder weights. So this essentially, this will point to the same place as the decoder weights, except it's got an extra transformation, this transpose on it, but they are pointing to the same underlying data. And so now if I learn, I can do my 5,000 epochs again. So again, my output looks good, it's learned well. Now if I look at the encoder and decoder weights, you can see that they are transposes of each other. For example, this one here is this one here. Okay, the same all the way around. 4.4985. That should be, where should I see that? 4.4985. They're transposes of each other. And so I left a bit of space down here for you to be able to try the experiment that I suggested. What happens if you flip one of the bits of the input and run it through your autoencoder? What does the output look like? Does it fix it? Give it a try.